which is a combined panel discussion and demo session. And if you can switch the slide, Aale. Okay, so I have the session description here. So the idea is to focus on ethical issues that are connected to processing urban citizen data with artificial intelligence technologies, especially in the Finnish context. And we are introducing you a lot of different perspectives from city organizations of Finland, research, and also industry. And the session also presents the UnBias AI for Decision Makers Toolkit, which is designed for organizations. And if you can put on the third last slide. This is the program of this session. So first we have this very brief welcome part and also session leader introductions, after which other participants, meaning the panel participants, give the short presentations, which are only 5 minutes per presenter. And we have Valia Wistuba from the city of Espoo, Kristiina Korjonen-Kuusipuro from University of Eastern Finland, Päivi Penkkala from the city of Turku. Then we have Emilia Rönkkö, who represents the industry, Kalle Juuti from the University of Helsinki, and Pasi Rautio from the city of Helsinki. And after they have given the short presentations, we have a 15 minutes roundtable discussion. And after this discussion, Ansgar and Giles are going to present this UnBias AI for Decision Makers Toolkit. And then we will have a final 15 minutes for discussion. So that is the program in brief. And briefly about me. So I work as an academic research fellow at the Aalto University of Finland, and I'm leading a project focusing on digital inequalities, and also inequalities and power asymmetries connected to data and AI are part of my work. And that's the reason that I'm hosting this session. And my background is in social sciences, and I have been studying the design, use, and sociocultural impact of new technologies for over 10 years. And so Aale, Ansgar, Giles, could you briefly present yourselves? Aale, put on your mic.
There we go. Yeah, good morning, everyone. So my name is Aale Luusua. I'm from the University of Oulu. My background is in architecture and urban planning, and I'm currently leading a 3-year postdoctoral project for the Academy of Finland called AI City for short. And the central idea of this project is to identify, firstly, urban AI, or the kind of introduction of AIs into urban environments as a phenomenon, and then establish it as an interdisciplinary field of study, and to begin this work by collaborating with interdisciplinary colleagues. So that's why I'm organizing this workshop. It's a part of my project. I've been working in the sort of area of urban technologies and urban planning for about 10 years now. Or actually 9.5 years now, and we've collaborated with Johanna for a long time. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'll let Ansgar and Giles introduce themselves now.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Ansgar Koene. I am the Global AI Ethics and Regulatory Leader at EY. I'm also a Senior Research Fellow at the University of Nottingham's Horizon Digital Economy Research Institute, where we've been doing research on the way in which general citizens and also specifically younger people are understand and engage with algorithmically mediated systems online, things like recommender systems, but increasingly also the way in which these types of technologies are being used for other service provisions. And as part of that work, we developed a toolkit to help awareness raising initially. More recently, together with Giles, we developed a newer version of that, which is the AI for Decision Makers toolkit that we will be presenting today. Over to you, Giles.
Thanks, Ansgar. Good morning. My name is Giles Lane. I'm the founder and director of a non-profit creative studio based in London called Proboscis. And in another part of my work, I'm also the co-founder of the Manifest Data Lab at Central St Martin's Art School as part of the University of Arts London. As Ansgar just mentioned, we were both part of the project team of a research project called UnBias, which looked specifically at the implications of bias in algorithmic systems, particularly for young people. And my role in that was to lead the development of the UnBias Fairness Toolkit, which we launched just over 2 years ago. And then, as Ansgar also mentioned, in the last year or so, he and I have been collaborating on developing a companion and extension to the original Fairness Toolkit, which is the UnBias AI for Decision Makers toolkit, which we will be presenting a little bit later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we are a bit ahead of the schedule, which is good, because now our panelists have maybe 6 minutes each for the presentations. And so I would ask Valia Wistuba from the city of Espoo to start.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us. Espoo, we are the second largest city in Finland. And in a nutshell, a way to face the future with data and AI, and that's our topic today. Can you take the next slide? We have over 500 different services and tasks, and we want to invite all the citizens and companies and third sector with us to develop and be a very responsible pioneer. And this is the way we try to proceed. And please, the next slide. We have an open city as a service concept, where we have different innovation ecosystems, and we believe that by collaborating with these different type of actors in the field, we can pretty much manage our future challenges and problems facing us and facing Finland and facing worldwide. I'm just keeping the general, I'm sure that you are very well. Then the next slide, you can see that when it comes to data and AI, we want to be a wise city, a wise community, and we reach for sustainable development as many of our peers. And we believe that the collaboration is a key to success. So alone, we will not succeed. And when it comes to the data and AI, we feel that it's like a fuel and engine for us, for our services and for our operations and for the well-being of the whole community. And of course, utilizing these data and AI well, we can understand better our customer needs and target our services in the future. We can create quality services and attract our citizens and companies and investors to come Espoo and to stay in Espoo. And of course also increase productivity and effectiveness for our sustainable services. So then I move to the case examples. I believe that we have some highlights. You can read more in depth in the presentation. We have gathered some information, so I'm not going to go in detail, but just going to pinpoint some experiments that we have done. But before that, maybe why we do experiments. So I want to highlight that. We pretty much have done several experiments related to data and AI, both like kind of back office and front office. So you can see the benefits in both. So for us, for our production, but also in benefiting our customers. And the basic thing is that we want to learn what form of technology and the utilization of data works in different cases, in different customer situations, as well as in the back office. So how do we need to develop our own organization and the way we work with our collaborators, so we can move forward. Using the machine learning for automation, obviously, process development, and then of course the possibilities for more empathetic AI, which is kind of a tricky field. So the interaction with humans, where really the AI can work or where it doesn't work, where the social acceptability is and where it's not. So in other words, technology might be far ahead, but we need people to join with us, and so we need to really seek out which works and which doesn't, and what is the social acceptability. And of course, the ethical use of data and AI, we want to be pioneer in this. We want to collaborate for principles, for rules, to set up a good environment of trust, so that we can collaborate and do wise service development, responsible service development. So we have, in our experience, the thing is from principles to practice. So there's a kind of a gap. We do experiments, but then what we do with those lessons learned and how we move forward to really fully utilize data and AI. But before we can master that, we truly believe that experiments and pilots are one quick way and a good way to gather information, gather lessons learned, and to better then utilize for a broader audience the data and AI. Please, the next slide. I have 5 case examples, and maybe you have heard a few years back, in 2018, we did a machine learning experiment in the call center and telephone services. And basically, what we learned is that the machine learning could actually help our customer servants well by extracting data on our systems and bringing it up for our servants to better serve our customer calls coming. And then also we have the bot that actually talked and responds the customers. And we succeeded to do this test, and we learned that actually many of the humans liked to talk to the bot if it could answer quickly to the general responses, and find out that in the future we could use 24/7 this type of machine learning and a data combination of data abstractions. Next one, please. And then we did a mobility as a service in home care services, 2017, 2018 experiment where we actually tried to seek for solution to optimize our both employees on home care services and the equipment to transfer that in different places and to optimize the logistics of that in Espoo. And we want to emphasize that in city of Espoo we have over 850,000 client visits a year, so the potential is big. And also we found in the test that the participants that participated found that it was very convenient for them to kind of do the send the inquiries and for different type of transportation that were offered, such as electric cycle or cars, joint cars. Then we had a mobile kind of working space solution, a minivan used over Espoo. So different type of ways to transfer themselves and their equipment, and they found that it was really convenient to be able to work together also in the minivan. But now we have used some analytics to combine our systems in order to optimize, because otherwise we cannot proceed with the potential that we seek. But we surely know that this is an area where we are going to continue after the pilot. Next one, please. Then, of course, we have done with Tieto artificial intelligence experiment, which is pretty familiar to everyone, on social welfare and healthcare, combining data, and found out that the artificial intelligence could actually have very different factors, and combining them came up with different type of predictions, could predict who would need in the future the services. And this was the new thing, was not only that we combined different data, but also that it proposed solutions not in an individual oriented way, but to the family itself. So it looked at not only the individual necessities, but also as the family as a whole. Next one, please. And then we had, we are now currently doing a machine learning translation application experiment with our customer services and employment services. And we are now taught the machine, the technology for Finnish language to be able to translate in real time both text and voice to Finnish language. And we know that Finnish language is pretty difficult, a tough one, specifically in a specific vocabulary. But we are happy to say that we have now in the employment services, we have taught the machine. And because of Corona, we had to wait for the customer test. But once we get the customer test, we will be coming out with the lessons learned from this experiment. This is of course very important for us, because in Espoo we have currently 80% of citizens speak some other language than Finnish and may not be so fluent with that. And we predict that by 2035 we have Espoo 30% of citizens that speak another language than Finnish. So we need a real-time translation applications that are accessible both in text and using voice technology. Next one, please. And the final one that we took here is also currently started the City as MyData operator project with our 4 cities. And I'm happy to see that Helsinki and Turku are here in the panel as well, and with Oulu. And we have just started with this project, a joint collaboration, and of course the idea is to find out the consolidation of data and how the mode of operation would work so that it would benefit all the parties involved. So this is like a truly public-private third sector collaboration and trying to tackle many of the issues that relates to the utilization of MyData with the concept of perhaps having an operator there and what are the roles and responsibilities of each other. So once this pilot project goes forward, I'm sure that it will come up with the lessons learned, and we have done pre-studies as well as the other cities have started with the pre-studies. Next year we move forward with that one. So in essence, next one, please. You know that some fears related to data and AI are very common, and we face them with our own employees, with our customers. And so the idea for us is that how we reduce these fears, how we make everybody like have a trustworthy and kind of good path for us to work together. And we believe that because in Finland the citizens highly trust the public sector, we need to maintain that trust. And so Espoo wants to be a really pioneer also in this, and so that we do a responsible use of data and AI in the future. If you look at the next slide, we believe that by now we have done some experiments, and at least in our employees side, we have come up with I could say that it has reduced the fears, the common fears that you may have related to data and AI, and we believe that by taking more collaborators with us and taking our customers with us, then they will have a realistic view on what the use of data and AI will bring. But we believe also that there's a lot of potential, not only in the decision-making side, but like introducing the digital worker. So already our employees are really excited because they have realized the benefits for routine tasks, at least, and to support their own work. So instead of being a kind of competitor, it has become a companion in their work. So the final slide, it's in a nutshell, we really try to promote the use of ethical and transparent artificial intelligence, and the use of data also responsibly is a key for us. And as I mentioned earlier, the kind of environment of trust is really important, and to maintain that and set up goals and principles. We also, of course, work with our peer cities, but also in different areas with the European Union, so that we can get the common goals and principles and legislation in place also in the whole European Union market. And of course, we want to collaborate, so because we believe that by bringing all different actors, we can together create a value that would benefit all the players, and learn and share together. And we believe that one way how to kind of get everybody on a good path, it's about communication. It's about open communication, telling what you are doing, what are the lessons, what are also the kind of pitfalls, what has not worked. So be honest on what you do, and that is the only way we believe that we will get social acceptance and sustainable solutions for the future. So this was from Espoo side, and in a nutshell, and in the next slide you have our contact information, but I don't know if I have any time for possible questions if you guys have online.
I think now we have to proceed, so thank you for your presentation. Next we have Kristiina Korjonen-Kuusipuro.
Hello everyone. I hope you hear me, because no one is saying you don't. I come from Eastern Finland. I have studied there the digital literacy of older adults in the past 2 years, and I'm within an EU-funded project called Access. It is funded from More Years Better Lives initiative. And for me as an anthropologist, one huge ethical question in this technical development, in this development of AI and using of the data, is whose voices are heard. And because aging is one of our mega trends at the moment, I'm specifically concerned about the voices of older adults, their experiences, their understanding of this technological development. So next slide, please. Here I want to share with you the diversity of older people, the heterogeneity of their skills and of their worlds. So we often think that older people is one group of people who are not involved in this technological development in anyhow. But we very often forget that there are people who has been within this development for years and years, for 20 years, 30 years. They've known everything since the beginning. But there are also people who are not so excited. So how do we take care of these voices? I think Valia Wistuba in her presentation said that we have to consider all the voices we hear. But how do we do that? And that is a kind of issue that we have to ponder. Aging brings challenges, of course. Your hearing may not be the same, your eyesight may not be the same, your brains do not even function as before. You may have problems with memory. So people are actually pretty scared. They have worries. How do they use these digital or these technological devices? Do they break them before they even can start? How do they dare to touch them even? They have problems, they have doubts that will they still learn? And this is one thing we need to take care about, because everybody learns, but older people very often think that they can't learn anymore. They have this kind of a cultural narrative about older people not able to learn. And this is one thing we need to kind of be aware of when we talk about technological development and older people. Memory is one thing. They're very, very worried about will they remember? And of course, when you're learning something new, you have to remember new things. Some people are very excited about this. And one of my informants told me when she was trying to learn how to use iPad, if I learn this, I will never sleep again. So they're very, very excited, but not all. And if we think of kind of co-development or participatory methods, not everybody is very interested to join. And I think here is the other point where we could kind of think, where we should work a little bit more, that how do we get all these voices, also from those people's voices who are not so interested, who just want to be the users, not the designer or the programmer. Another point in connecting to this is that older people are nowadays very often asked to these participatory design processes, and they come to these processes, they participate very eagerly, and then they do not know, are their voices heard? They have the experience that we were not heard. We were there, we told our viewpoints, we told how older people react to these things, and they didn't hear us. So this is also one thing. So even they try to be in, they are in a way left out. And in these processes, people should be given the information where the output actually was used. We heard you because of this and that, so that they can really have this idea that they have been heard. They have their knowledge has been used in this participatory project. Next slide, please. So from my viewpoint, deeper understanding is needed on the diversity of these voices. So the skills, capabilities, interests, needs, and motivations people have. We also need much more information of everyday life of older people, but of course of all people. What are they interested in? Because if they are motivated, if they are interested, they will kind of be more positive about these changes. Very often, their doubts or their negative attitude is labeled as a change resistance. And people say that, well, older people are change resistant. There's nothing we do about it. And this is not the case. Even though they have negative feelings, negative attitude, these emotions and attitudes, they are kind of hotspots we need to follow, because they show exactly us the points where we need to kind of concentrate more on. So I think we should develop a kind of need-based AI, not just do whatever is possible, but kind of think what is really needed. We also need to develop kind of context-sensitive knowledge, which brings together professional, scientific, experiential knowledge and kind of new platforms also. I know that there is much going on in this field, but we'll still need to think, how do we use this small data besides the big data? We have huge amount of big data, but how do we bring the small data together with this big data? How do we use it? We also need to develop these participatory knowledge-making procedures even further. And of course, what is even more important, I think, is that we need to trigger people's technological imagination, and especially so when we talk about urban senior citizens. I think I've used my 5 minutes, so thank you.
Thank you, Kristiina. Important perspectives. And next, we have Päivi Penkkala from the city of Turku.
Yes, hello,
so please.
Greetings. Can you hear me? Yes. Yes, my name is Päivi Penkkala and greetings from city of Turku. You can take this next slide immediately. Can you take, yeah, thanks. I think just the central initiative I would like to tell you about is that the city of Turku is renewing its organization and its paradigm of leadership. And this new way of leading is based on 3 dimensions: understanding and leading of customership, understanding of services, and renewing thinking of service network, and then production of services. And the first one is, I think, the important one in this connection, because we would like to understand our customers and residents much more better than we nowadays do. We have lots of data and we have lots of this big data, as Kristiina told, but we don't have so much this like personal data. But anyway, we would like to understand, collect the data in one place, then really understand our customers better, and then use this data first, of course, like improving our services and how we can contact our residents and other customers, but also like targeting and personalizing the services better. And all this, you can hear the connection to MyData thinking. And then the next slide, please. In thinking about using in a new way this customer data, we are coming to these large questions, which almost every of these Kristiina already mentioned, like how should we inform citizens about the using of their data? How can we be sure that they understand if we ask if this using of data is okay? How can we trust this, and or are we responsible about this, or is are the citizens themselves responsible themselves of understanding what does it mean, and what kind of ethical rules should we build for using this data? Not just following the legal ways, but also the ethical thinking of this using of this data if we have it more and more. So I would like to present our situation in this way, in a very short way. But this is the place where we are and why we are so much connected in this MyData thinking, I think. But I have to say that we are just starting to take the baby steps. So we have the understanding of data at some point, and we understand that we have lots of data, and we can dream of using like AI in helping people to find better services and creating better services. But how to do it in a best way? This is the long path that is ahead, and we need help to understand it. So it's good to do it with this kind of community and without the cities. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Päivi. Next we have Emilia Rönkkö, and I have to ask you to kind of keep in 5 or 6 minutes so that we will have time for the questions or time for the discussion as well. But now, Emilia, stage is yours.
Yes, thank you, Johanna. Yes, my name is Emilia Rönkkö. I'm a docent of urban planning at the University of Oulu, and I'm also a co-founder in an urban tech company called Logia Solutions. Next, please. And what we do in Logia Solutions is that we are developing, you can go forward, developing a digital tool for aiding urban planners and decision makers. And what we basically want to do with our solution, it's called capacity, is that we want to replace the traditional way of bringing information and evidence to urban planning processes, and which is usually represented in consultant reports and this static manner. And often the information is outdated as soon as it comes out of the printer. So what we want to do is to shift the idea of bringing information into planning processes to dynamic instead of static, and to use real-time data and automated data flows in planning. And here we also come to the question of urban AI as a supportive tool for planners and decision makers. So go for it. And why we do this is that, okay, going back, thanks. Why we do this is that we want to, first of all, as I mentioned, to shift the focus from harvesting data manually and putting a lot of effort and time and resources into that, into another way of round, and to the utilization of information and knowledge in the urban planning processes. And we are actually working with urban service network planning, to be precise. So that's one important segment of the public sector activities and city development. So I'm talking about schools and kindergartens and healthcare units and so on. So digital tools can help in providing actionable insights in the service network planning. And what we are also inquiring and promoting is a new type of systemic approach in urban management, so that we can break the organizational but also data silos and also to advance knowledge transfer and transfer in all levels of city domains. So from the strategic point of view to the actual operating level. So going forward, is that we see the advantages, so that simply put, we would be able to plan a right size school in the right location at the right time. And this also means that we promote anticipatory planning, and we would be able to optimize the service network and also the use of money, so the public investments, and minimize expenditures in the operational costs, and also, of course, to maximize the impact of public services. So, and going forward to the actual point, why, to who we do this, is of course this big vision of human-centric urban service ecosystems that would also shift the idea of production-oriented service provision into more demand-driven or human-driven service provision. And in this picture, I see the role of MyData really important, and also that we would be able to create digital twins of city service networks and combining and big data, and use different AI-aided tools also in in the supporting decision making and planning. So that would be like the big picture that we are promoting and going towards in our work. So briefly, thank you.
Thank you, Emilia. Next, I think we have, yes, Kalle, Juuti. So the other representative from the research side. So please.
Good morning, everyone. It's still morning time, at least in London, isn't it, the official time for the conference? So as a professor of digital learning at schools at the University of Helsinki, and my research interests are in the next slide, if you can change. So my basic question is that I'm learning scientist, so to say, that my focus research area is in learning, and special emphasis in my position is to consider digital environments, digital tools, and that kind of things. What is their role in learning in all school levels? Basically, my research is focused on basic education and upper secondary school or high school, where students are we are designing with teachers new kind of learning environments where digital tools and new pedagogy are integrated in the learning and aspects of sustainability, invention pedagogy, teacher professional learning, interest, emotions, and that kind of things are core. And please, the next slide. I was asked to reflect in this roundtable the question, how do we prepare and educate people to become members of society where data and artificial intelligence are used extensively? And this relates my research interest and my ideas of education, so that there's one question that I think we should consider, is that do we teach data and AI in teaching, or do we just teach about these things? And I think this is very crucial distinction to consider while we are talking such data-intensive ideas, ethics concerning those. What are the real competencies citizens to understand those issues and work with those? For example, what kind of cognitive tools we give to our adolescents, children, to work with data and really take advantage and be agents of users of the data, using data, not just be persons who are led or monitored with extensive data, but what is the change from this? All data is used in the governance purposes to change to this individual and citizens' agency to apply this data. And my solution is, of course, it is simple, and it was great to see these city persons, that the city cases. That my solution is that could we integrate this real data that comes from the several data sources within cities? Can we use this real data with children to do something with this data and understand how this data come from what is the structure of this data and what we can find out, how we can use those data. And using that kind of approach, I believe this is more to say this is like a position speech to wish to see that kind of things more in the future, where those data producers and children work together with this real data and that kind of things. And I think that was basically my roundtable talk. And last slide was for the yes, this is for the was this okay? But this is basically the same. I said that these are the ethical issues that we need to work with, and all the time consider how do we use this data, and what, for example, there are a lot of questions. For example, in teaching, we got a lot of big data in learning situations, and what is the key purpose to use this data, and who are the owner of this data? These are the main questions all the time. What if we know something, how we use that knowledge? That is the basic question in teaching. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kalle. Important perspectives as well. And the last but not least, we have Pasi Rautio from the city of Helsinki.
Hello, good morning everyone. And my name is Pasi Rautio and I work for the city of Helsinki. Helsinki is the capital of Finland and also it's the biggest city in Finland. And could you put the next slide, please? Well, we have a city strategy, just like every other city in Finland as well. And in there we say that we want to be the most functional city in the world. And to achieve this goal, we truly need to make the best use of digital technologies, and especially this Corona time. And we also say in strategy that we focus in utilizing digitalization, robotization, and AI. So we actually say that we have to use AI in our services. And also there is said that we operate based on openness and transparency. And this is really key point when we are discussing about ethics and MyData field. Could you please? Yes, thank you. And what does the most functional city means? Well, citizens, they use services that provide to them. And we want to provide those services on the right time. They have to be secure. Also, they have to be user-friendly. And this is the new thing. They have to be personalized, and also they should be proactively provided to the citizens. And this means that we have to use, well, we don't have to, but it helps great deal if we use data analytics, data, and also AI to provide those services. And when we use analytics, we can provide those personalized way, and also we can actually provide those services proactive way. So the citizens don't have to apply all services. They actually can get the services before they actually have said to the city that they need the service. Could you please put the next slide? And the main question here is, because we have a lot of data and citizens from the citizens, and we want to use AI and data analytics, the question is, do people trust us to use the data for their benefit? And here is the key that nowadays GDPR and other regulations say that we actually can't use and share data from services to services, and MyData is here one solution. Next slide, please. So how we think here. So because we need kind of permission to use the data in other services that the data is actually collected. And MyData principles that says that citizen itself can tell us where we can use the data and how, or how we can share the data to other companies or other cities. And here's the key, that citizen can actually tell us that we can use the data in other services as well. And that's why we have to kind of be a MyData operator, and we also have a project going on with other cities like Espoo and Turku and Oulu. Next slide, please. What about the AI? We started this work over a year ago. We had the international seminar with other cities and universities, and this is quite good group that we started to work. And we started to think, how should we build this kind of ethical framework? It's not done, it's just started, but we have started to do other things as well. Next slide, please. We have also done lots of AI experiments in Helsinki. We have done almost 20 experiments. We have very smaller experiments and bigger ones. And we get those learnings to use, and so we can give better services to the citizens and also produce more efficient processes. Next one. Also, you can put the next one as well. We have built this AI register because we want to be open and share how we use AI in a city. We did this with City of Amsterdam, and it's in live. There's a link, you can go and check it. In this first phase, we have described 5 different AI solutions in that register, and we are going to build a lot more descriptions in future. Next one. And also we have made some collaboration with University of Helsinki. We launched, actually university launched last month, this ethics of AI, and you all can do this online course. There's a link as well in the next slide, and it's kind of a same idea as it was in Elements of AI. And there's case from London, Amsterdam, and Helsinki. Next one, please. And because I said we want to be a proactive city, and the most recent ethical case we have, and the case is also in the MOOC, we have this: how do we provide proactive service to the citizens in healthcare? And this is a very great question, because in a real world we can actually do this proactive way. If someone passes out in a street, of course we call an ambulance. But in the digital world, if we can see from the data that a person have high, some kind of risk for diseases, we can't actually communicate to the citizen. And this is where GDPR and laws are preventing us to be proactive. And here we should kind of find the way to work with the in different layers, and we should find the solution how to contact citizens proactive way. Next slide, please. Here's my communication information if you have something to ask me about the AI register or some other cases we have done in Helsinki. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for everybody for your interesting presentations. And I think we have time for one panel round. And as we have so wonderful multi-stakeholder panel present, I'm going to ask you that what do you think are the most critical points where more collaboration between different stakeholders is needed, especially, of course, connected to these ethical issues that we have already been reflecting here? So, any ideas? Pasi?
Well, I can continue from my presentation, because I think the main thing is how do we give those services proactive way, and we need the data, and now we can't use the data when there's personalized data. So we should find the ways to use GDPR in a right way, and this is something discussion we have to discuss with other cities and universities, and we may have to affect the laws as well in this discussion.
Okay, so very, very profound issues.
From Espoo, can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if I want to kind of, in a nutshell, I think the presentations were really good. I would say that the preventive services are one. So from exactly how Pasi mentioned, from the reactive to preventive services, that's the one aspect, at least in the public sector. And the second one is when actually you utilize the services, so the customer interaction. So everything that you can improve in the customer interaction, like mentioned there, targeting the need-based targeted services on time, that reflects to automation and all the things that go in the back office, but also like when the actual interaction with the customers are either digitally or virtually or in a hybrid way. That is where is the other kind of aspect that we need to improve. So those are the two: preventing services and in the customer interaction situations.
Okay, thank you. What about our researchers? Kristiina and Kalle, what do you think?
Well, for me as an anthropologist and as a researcher, I think this is also a question of different knowledge bases. So I would say that one of the critical points is to understand each other. From what is kind of scientific knowledge, how is professional knowledge from practical organizations coming into this, and how is this experiential knowledge combined into this? So we need this kind of platforms in order to share our understandings of knowledge. This is a kind of upper level thing. It's not a very practical thing, but still in many cases where I've been involved, the final kind of outcome is that, now we start understanding each other in the end of the process. So we should discuss this more, I think.
Yes, definitely. And Kalle, do you have any comments?
Yes, for this use of data in research where we are collaborating with schools, we have found that this GDPR has made everything quite complicated, and of course there are reasons to do those things, but at the same time there are phenomena that something is happening at school as a normal school practices. It is okay, but when you try to do the same under the title of research, it is impossible. And that is quite something that brings to the challenges for the how we use the data, how we gather the data, how we share data, and for example, if we don't have access to all the data that are produced in the school, quite often minorities and for example, language minorities and students with immigrant background are not included in the data sets. And it gives very almost a wrong view of the phenomena. For example, when you have something happens in the classroom, there are students who are involved in the data and students who are not. And you try, and these phenomena are classroom based. They are not individual. And how to make that kind of combinations of the data, of the phenomena that are happening in the classroom. And if you have some data that is not whole in that sense, it makes a lot of problems in the interpretation of the phenomena and brings perhaps the totally wrong view of the phenomena. And that is something that requires a lot of new kind of thinking, I would say, for how we interpret the role of schools, research and collaboration and research practice partnership in that sense. And for example, in the city of Helsinki, in our faculty, we have had a very fruitful collaboration to solve those problems. And I guess that Pasi has somehow have been related in that research activities with our professor Kai Hakkarainen, who is the principal investigator in that work to have this kind of this kind of work and how to deal with the data, strictly following the rules of these regulations and things.
Yes, thank you. And we are already kind of approaching the topic of biased data and biased AI, but I still would like to give voice to the industry sector. So Emilia, do you have a comment?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, from our perspective, the biggest hurdle to be overcome is the silos in the organizational side, but also in the data side. So in order, if we want to create a digital twin of the city service network, we need to integrate data from multiple sources, whether it's open data or internal data from the city systems, or third-party data or IoT, or MyData. So the first hurdle is to make these data sources interoperable. And that's what we are actually doing right now, and try to solve this issue with the city of Helsinki. We work also with, and yeah, that is, I think it's not an ethical issue so much as it is a collaboration issue between different segments and technical issues also.
Okay, thank you, Emilia. And as we have a very strict schedule, now I ask Giles and Ansgar, can you take over?
Yes, thank you very much. And it was really interesting to hear the sort of core issues that the various parties have been discussing, and also interesting to see the approaches that are being taken, approaching it from initial kind of strategic thinking about what might be the needs, but then recognizing the necessity to connect with different parties involved in it, reaching out to the different stakeholders, such as the elderly or the less able, and the need to collect the insights from the different kinds of parties in this, and really the challenges of thinking systematically across the different kind of levels. And so this is one of the things that the UnBias AI for Decision Makers toolkit is aiming to support organizations with. And I think, Giles, do you want to do a bit of a initial thinking, describing the philosophy behind the toolkit, and also maybe leading in with the video that we have for showing it?
Sure. So the toolkit is really designed to enable different groups of people to be able to discuss what ethics mean to them in terms of the governance, the design, the creation of AI or machine learning or automated decision-making systems. And we wanted to do something slightly different to what perhaps has been a sort of a main drift of the last couple of years in the sort of AI ethics area. There are, as we all know, probably somewhere between 100 and 200 different codes of ethics and sets of principles. And what we wanted to do with this particular toolkit was to make something that was fundamentally pragmatic and practical, that would bring people together to be able to identify what we mean by ethics in this area and how it would actually operate across a large organization, or any organization, in fact, whether it was large or small, public or private, and no matter what it was engaged in. So what the toolkit does is it creates a framework for holding the kinds of complex and challenging conversations that need to take place across multiple disciplinary sectors and different expertises, and to help groups of people identify where a proposed or even an existing AI system or any kind of decision-making system, where it actually aligns with the organization's core values and its own, whether it has a stated set of ethics principles or not. So this really is about aligning it with the mission, the vision, the values, and the ethics of an organization. And my own observation over many years is these kinds of conversations simply don't happen in most organizations, where all kinds of areas, from marketing through to coding, through to senior management, through to legal and compliance, they don't all sit together and actually look and see if these things take place. So we wanted to create a really simple tool that would enable those conversations to happen. And I would say that the point of this very pragmatic and practical approach is not to develop solutions so much as to enable a process of discovery, or what I call co-discovery. And so the kinds of questions that it enables people to ask might be more about learning how their work and their area of responsibility flows into those of other people, and so they can situate themselves in relation to what else is going on in the organization. Too often we see that ethics is sort of, it's left off to the people in legal and compliance, or it's treated as a personal and private matter. And what we're hoping to do with this particular toolkit is to make it more simpler for people to be able to realize collective responsibility, and to use a sort of a whole systems approach, and what I call a civic thinking approach. So not just a critical thinking, but a civic one. So seeing yourself as part of a bigger body of action and actors within the network of whatever's being done to design and create the system. I think I should probably stop there in terms of introduction. Ansgar, do you want to show the video? Or do you want me to?
If you could, I don't have it loaded up right now.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I don't have it either, loaded up either. Sorry.
Or while you look for it, I can show us a bit of a presentation. I'll be doing very briefly.
Yeah.
So I hope. So what I'm showing here, so this is what the toolkit looks like. We've deliberately made a physical toolkit that is, it basically consists of these kinds of cards that you're seeing here laid out, because that brings people together. To facilitate a real conversation and get people together, it needs to be something people can interact with, and not just some kind of a virtual thing where you go through various kind of boxes and fill them in on your screen and send them over to somebody else. A core thing is really to generate the discussion between the different parties. And as Giles said, it's really about raising the questions between them. So,
sorry about that.
Okay. So it consists of this kind of a worksheet which has problems and opportunities, barriers, harms, resources, values, and actions on the sides, the fields to sort of fill in as you're going through the conversation. But these cards, so each of these elements within this flower is one of these cards, are sort of the core conversation drivers that will help for making the discussion. And I think from the sound of it, Giles has the video ready. This might actually be best to switch over to this video first before I continue with this.
So this is a very short 3-minute video.
Sharing. There we go.
Okay.
So the video gave a quick overview of the different kind of parties that might be involved in using the when you're using the toolkit, as was indicated. For instance, you want to make sure that the developers, but the management, potentially HR, public relations, and various different parties are present or participating in this kind of activity. And so I just wanted to do a very brief kind of simulation of trying to run this. Let me go into display mode properly. So let's consider an example of doing an AI chatbot, for instance, for customer engagement. So typically you might start with, we've decided we're going to want to do this AI chatbot because we have a certain kind of a business case behind this. But what exactly is, who benefits from its use? What are the associated costs? How does the AI perform against expectations? Those are sort of the typical kind of things that will have been thought about in relation to the business case or the overall kind of strategy of why the AI chatbot is being introduced. So this might be an easy kind of starting point for the discussion. We say, okay, so we have this idea of the business case, the strategy. We might start by putting that down and having management may describe these kinds of the intended values and benefits of that. Developers could then pitch in and talk about some of the potential challenges that might be related to this, as might human resources. From a bit of discussion around the kind of strategy thing, the next kind of issue that might be a thing that you want to raise could be ethos and values. We've described we wanted to introduce a chatbot to help our customers or the citizens in the city access certain kind of services, but do we even have clarity around what the values are that we want to be embedding in this? So ethos and values might be the next step that we want to introduce into the discussion. And so on the back of the ethos and values cards, we'll find some discussion starters, such as, do we have clarity around mission, vision, values, and ethics? Do we have an existing AI ethics framework, which is something that we could use to refer to? If not, do we want to be looking at other existing frameworks that might be around perhaps a similar organization has been using, or perhaps it is one of the frameworks that have been publicly used, like from the EU's high-level expert group, for instance. Based on thinking about, these are our ethics and values, we reflect on the connection to the strategy. Are we really embedding these within the strategy? And perhaps one of the things specifically in the kind of use case, such as a chatbot that would be next to come up in the conversation would be, well, the whole point of the chatbot is that it engages with users, with people. So what is our full understanding of the people dimension that comes into the AI kind of system? And so on the back of the people's card, you'll find a couple of discussion starters, such as who are the stakeholders? How we understand them, both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, and potentially also thinking beyond the immediate users to those that are connected to it. For instance, we're talking about a service that ultimately is supposed to help children in their school environment or something like that. The chatbot users might not be the children, might actually be the parents. How have we thought about that kind of a multi-stage kind of interaction? Following that kind of a discussion around the people kind of direction, looking at the set of cards that we have, we might have been thinking, okay, well, one of the things that we need to be considering is what is the potential implications of using this type of tool for the reputation of the city. We've heard some of the previous speakers talk about the need to have a trusted environment within the city. How do we manage the trust relationship between the public sector using citizens' data and the citizens engaging with these? What are the kinds of factors that we need to be considering to introduce in order to manage trust around the system? What are positive and negative potential implications of using an AI chatbot? How will this be communicated to the users of this system? Those kinds of questions. Again, the questions on the back of the card are discussion starters. The real value of the system is bringing together the different parties and helping them generate the discussion around these kinds of issues. And so gradually, as you go through it, you connect the different elements of the bigger mosaic of issues that need to be considered when introducing an AI system, helping to raise to the awareness really the multifaceted aspects, that you're not just focusing on sort of the development element, the technical data science piece, but rather, that it connects to different parts within the organization and within society. And so this is the, as we mentioned at the beginning, the UnBias AI for Decision Makers toolkit, which is on the left, is actually it's a continuation of thinking and work that we've previously done on things like the unbiased awareness cards, which was focusing more on the perspective of users, the citizens who are encountering the systems and helping them better understand how those systems work. I have more in this deck to go into the details of the cards, but in the interest of time, I think I will stop here so that we can have a bit of a discussion as well. So with that, Giles, do you want to add something further to this, or do we want to open up to the floor right now?
Can I ask for Giles and Ansgar? Apologies for my poor pronunciation. Do you have an interesting toolkit, and I'm sure that it would facilitate the conversation among different actors? Have you any concrete example that where you have utilized it and how it had helped, gathering citizens and decision makers and different actors? So can you just in brief give kind of an example of a concrete case and what were the benefits that you found in utilizing the toolkit?
That's slightly challenging because we developed this toolkit at the beginning of this particular year, and part of this, the functionality of the toolkit is to have people together. So it's been a challenge to run actual workshops with it so far. Giles has been talking to various parties about how they perceive and can imagine the use of the kit. The previous one, the Unbiased Awareness Cards, took a number of workshops. For that one, we saw this kind of methodology very effective in really starting discussions, getting people together. So in that case, we would start with a simple kind of exercise using these cards, for instance, to just explore the different kinds of data sets that are being collected about people when they're engaging with systems. And typically the conversations that would be triggered and started from this were such that within the framework of a 45-minute session of a conference workshop, for instance, where we wanted to show 2 or 3 exercises that you could do with it, people were they just wanted to spend the whole time, even from the first one, engaging deeper in it triggers and brings up their experience. This, well, actually, this also happened, and then somebody else responds to that. Well, yeah, that actually is my experience, and those kinds of things. Feedback when you were talking about this toolkit with the new toolkit, decision makers one, with other people that you think could illustrate something around the use of it.
Could I comment on this toolkit? When we were starting to figure out the AI ethics framework, of course, we acknowledge that we all need those high-level principles, but they don't help when we have actual projects. And then we had in our mind this more practical level or operational level framework that has questions and how we should think about these things and take consideration of those. And there was quite the same aspect as your toolkit had, and that's why it seems quite good. And also because we have that AI register, we have also the same kind of aspects there, and we have to tell those things to the citizens, and we have to do those information there with cooperation with the companies that they produce the service. So actually we have those same issues that we have to discuss with many people and many companies, and this kind of toolkit would help us further, or maybe those could be combined.
Yes, the AI for Decision Makers toolkit, I should also point out, is very, very new. It's only been publicly available as a physical set for the last 3 weeks. So we haven't yet had the chance to do the kind of concrete example that Valia was asking for. They're also available as digital downloads, and there's been a few experiments with them over the past, say, 2 months. What I would say in response to Pasi is that exactly one of the purposes, in particular of the previous toolkit, the fairness toolkit, but also with this new toolkit, is to think about the role of how do you structure things like citizens' juries and public deliberation. And although there are lots of AI principles and lots of AI codes, they're very challenging for ordinary citizens who might not be experts in digital technology. And I think this speaks very much to what Kristiina was speaking about earlier, and also what Kalle was talking about earlier. When we developed the Unbiased Fairness Toolkit with the awareness cards, that was done in a co-design process with young people aged between 13 and 22. Because we saw them as being a really important group. They're often thought of as digital natives, but they rarely have access to the kind of kit everyone in this conference will be having. They don't have, a fast laptop. They don't have an expensive smartphone necessarily, or perhaps they share them with other household members. So we found that although young people are very digitally engaged, they're often not very well digitally informed. So they don't understand the implications of using technologies. They don't know they don't really have much sense of how data is collected about them and how it's shared by the platforms and systems, corporations and governments involved. So I think these toolkits are a wonderful bridge to enable the kinds of complex conversations that not only have to happen within an organization, which is the AI for Decision Makers is specifically designed to help and facilitate those conversations, but also how you then bridge out to the users, to the citizens and the public who are affected by the decision-making systems that are being planned, devised, and implemented. And so we sort of see these two toolkits as being a bit of a virtuous circle, both for people who are affected by decision-making systems, but also those designing them to have better and more structured and fruitful conversations about not only should we have some of these systems, because some of them, I think it's becoming very clear, need to be regulated out of existence, and others where we need to have a much more mature conversation about, well, how do we take this forwards? How do we contain the complexities and the challenges of data sharing and the kind of the various barriers and harms that throws up, but also how do we do this in a way that works for all sides of the equation?
Okay, I hate to kill this fruitful discussion, but I think we are running out of time. So at this point, I thank you all for your presentations and comments. And of course, this was just a very brief session, and I hope you can continue or that we can continue discussions on some other venues. And of course, we can also use the spaces offered by the conference, all these virtual spaces. So thank you all. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.